On day 18 we'll be looking around this area of the country. We'll be driving to Auschwitz, over to Chalmette, back to Vistula Park, and then ending up in Tenzinnik for the night. Yes. Pavel's looking to get a motorcycle, so he practiced driving as though he was on one. This is a castle we saw from Pavel's parents' home. You'll not find a town named Auschwitz in Poland. Auschwitz is the town, Auschwitz is the German name for it. There are actually 3 Auschwitz camps located here. Auschwitz I, Auschwitz II, which is known as Birkenau, Auschwitz III, which is Monowitz, and a petrochemical plant. Auschwitz III Monowitz was built to give slave labor to the petrochemical plant. We'll be coming to that petrochemical plant first, and as we drive along we'll see several pillboxes that were used for its protection. Yes. On our left, and on our right we'll see the fence that was there to keep intruders out. As we drive along we'll see those big pipes again. They'll have a central heating building, and then they'll distribute the steam to other buildings, so they don't actually have their own heating system. If the central goes out, everything is cold. We've now arrived at the Polish town of Auschwitz. This was a town for many centuries before the Germans arrived, but they built their 2 main camps here, Auschwitz and Birkenau. That's where we'll be looking. We've now arrived at Auschwitz I. This is the fence that kept the prisoners in. This was a concentration camp, not a death camp. In concentration camps, they collected prisoners. In death camps, they were designed to kill prisoners. Upon arrival at the visitor center, we'll see a film, and then we will take this route through the camp, visiting many of the buildings there. Auschwitz I was originally a Polish military barracks that was converted to a concentration camp, mainly to hold Polish prisoners to begin with, but later holding Jews and other undesirables. This is our guide, but you won't be hearing much of her. We've been given headsets that she can talk very low on, and we can still hear. Therefore, many guides can be talking in the same room at the same time, and there are people hearing them. This also means I can wander around taking pictures and still hear the lecture. This is the gate they would march out every single day to do their hard slave labor for the day. Then they would come back in, both times the band playing with their dead, because all had to report back or they would be considered deserters and everybody would be punished. The barbed wire was electrified in 2 rows so that you couldn't possibly escape, and these are the buildings they would live in. The barracks here are made out of brick because this again was a Polish military base before it was turned into a concentration camp, and held Polish prisoners at first before being used to house various other people that were undesirable. Let's go look at the Extermination Museum. People were brought here from all over Europe, and over 1 million people died in the second camp that was built and we'll be visiting later at Birkenau. They would collect the people from the various towns and bring them to places like this, which were called concentration camps. Then they would move the people from the concentration camps to the death camps where they would be killed. They would be packed into cattle cars for the trip. Your main need at the concentration camp is to keep people under control, so you have double electrified barbed wire and guard towers. As they arrived, they would be greeted, taken away things, showered, then they would be given a designation and photographed. The Nazis were very good bookkeepers and they kept very accurate records. But the Nazis weren't the only ones you had to fear. Some of the prisoners themselves lorded it over others and punished them, stealing their food. This is the type of living quarters they had, and this is the bathroom for over 200 people. Our next stop will be where they held the prisoners slated for death. They would be led into a courtyard where they would be shot. But later they found out that if you sprayed the barracks with insecticide, many prisoners got sick and died, so they started experimenting with using gas for mass executions for the first time. This is where they would bring political prisoners and hang them in front of everybody. And now we head outside the fence again. You can see how formidable a barrier this would be to try and get through, especially electrified. We'll be walking by the Gestapo headquarters where they tortured prisoners and on over to the crematorium in this area. The crematorium at first was used to dispose of prisoners who had died of various illnesses and old age, but then as they started experimenting with gas, they would use this room for gassing the prisoners and then these for burning the bodies. The experiments with the gas was successful that they decided to build a death camp just a few miles away at Birkenau. It was 10 times larger than Auschwitz I. We'll only be looking at a small portion of this camp, and this will be the map of where we'll be going. This camp was built to be a death factory, to process large numbers of humans by killing them and salvaging everything they could from them. The trains of cattle cars bringing the prisoners would enter through this gate, so they would be in the middle of camp before they ever got off the train. Coming up these tracks, they would be parked by this platform. As the trains came to a stop, the Gestapo officers and their dog would come and unload the train. They would sort the people into 2 different columns, one for women and children, one for men. Then they would start to sort those people. The young, the old, the women, those that couldn't work were sent one way to death. From these people they would collect everything that is of use at all. Clothes, luggage, shoes, personal items like combs and brushes, eyeglasses, prostheses, cups and bowls and pans and everything else. They would be then led back to one of the gas chambers, crematoriums. These were destroyed by the Nazis when they left because they were ashamed of what they had been doing and didn't want anybody to have any evidence. Plans were found, however. They'd be brought into this chamber for taking off their clothes, then led to a shower for gassing, and then taken to the crematorium. This model shows how they were led underground for taking off their clothes. That way nobody knew what was going on. Then they were taken to the gas chamber, which would be on the far right, and then up to the crematorium. The Nazis didn't do this work, though. They had the Zonka commandos, who were Jewish boys, do this work for them of handling the bodies. Each of the 4 gas chambers could kill 2,000 at one time, and they used Cyclone B, this here, for gassing. This is the chamber where they would have taken their clothes off. The gas chamber would have been on the other side of this building, and this is where the crematorium would have been. If need be, they could process over 8,000 people a day. 75% went to the gas chambers, but the rest went through this gate. They were used as slave labor as long as they could go, and were housed in these type barracks. Over 500 would be in a barracks like this, and the central heating was just a concrete with one little furnace on an end. In another building, they would have had bathrooms. You were given 10 minutes a day, and if you didn't finish your business, you were beaten. This is what it looked like in the winter. Most of the barracks were burned by the Nazis as they left, and a few have been rebuilt, but most simply have the chimneys there. This is a memorial to those killed here. 1/4 of all the people killed by the Nazis were killed at this camp. Over 1 million people. It was truly a factory designed for the extermination of a human race. Then it's back on the bus to Auschwitz I, and we head out to Chalmette. Huh? This is where Pavel's family lived when he came to America, and they still have an apartment here, and his dad sometimes stays here since his medical practice is very close. And this was the grammar school that taught Pavel everything he knows. We'll be eating at this restaurant, which is owned by some friends of Pavel's family. The food was really good, and Deborah had a good time with the drinks. Our last stop of the day will be Vistula Park, and these two natives will be showing us around.
Let's go in and see what it looks like.
Pottery and with wheels.
Yes.
Drying
In the kitchen.
in the kitchen. That's probably what you can see in this house.
These unusual looking structures are all beehives. And this well is from one of the villages.
Ovens. He had some kind of printing press.
Old wood.
Have a little garden out here, and then inside would be the house.
My grandma used to have one of these houses.
Did she?
Like the parents of my father.
And then you would go up into the attic here, and this is where they would live.
Collecting, this thicker part of
Yeah.
one being farm still.
Here's the priest house.
It's like a priest's office. It's like your office.
And this is the priest office here. Behind bars, because they don't
This
want to
harmony
let
for playing on the left. Like a old-fashioned piano.
This is the bell tower.
And then it's time to head back to Tzinek for the night, ending day 18.